Welcome to our vlog. We are going to discuss topics around the quality management standards and specific parts and requirements from a Lean Agile perspective. Who are we? I'm Andreas Odhage. I work for Force Agile and my own company as Sergo, and my specialty is that I combined Lean and Agile thinking with the requirements in the quality management system standard ISO 9001. I'm also a global lead auditor for several ISO standards among quality management, environmental management, occupational health and safety management, and so on. And Jon, you can present yourself.
Thank you, Andreas. I'm so happy to work with you on this because you are so skilled in ISO and Agile thinking. And for my own sake, I think we together can contribute a lot to how to make the ISO standard alive in the organizations by taking this. Myself, Jon Urdal, I'm CEO of Force Agile in Norway. I'm a mechanical engineer and a computer scientist from background. I've had the C-level positions for the last 20 years, working very much with Lean Agile strategy deployment, and also now as a consultant to helping companies in working in smooth ways using Lean Agile approaches.
Good. And it's very good that you said episodes, because we're, of course, aiming to have a lot of episodes where we dissect the standard for quality management systems. And the duration, we're aiming for having 10 to 15 minutes kind of informal chit chat around the requirements and the tools and methods and ceremonies in Lean and Agile methods. And we will try to post 1 or 2 episodes a month, and hopefully there will be more over time. And maybe we should start with our first slide here to see why are we doing this. And this is how is it all connected. And I think this is a very good picture that where you can see that ISO, Lean and Agile, they're actually working together. They are not standalone methods or things. They are living in a symbiosis. And as you can see, ISO is just a recipe. It's a lot of requirements on what you need to have in order to work with continuous improvement. And Lean will give you the mindset, the direction and value flows, which is the processes they're talking about in ISO 9001 and the standard, and reduction of waste, and actually a culture of continuous improvement. And if we look at the Agile part, it's where you focus on customer centricity, and you have this in Lean and ISO as well, the focus on the customer. But in Agile, you're leveling up on that part and in delivering value, and all the tools and ceremonies you have in Agile, especially when it comes to development. And that is actually what we are going to focus on in this episode and a couple of the following episodes. If you change the slide, please.
Yeah, just before I do that, yes, I would just make a comment, because what our blog is all about is to make you understand the value of Lean Agile thinking in order to get your requirements in the ISO standard alive, so that you actually live by the requirements in a very, very efficient way. So that's the bottom right here. By using Lean Agile approaches to your ISO, you can get a very operational way of working with your ISO requirements. So that's what our vlog is all about. And we are going to take different approaches from the ISO requirements and tell you and discuss how Lean Agile can meet that requirement in order for you to improve in your operational day-to-day business. So Andreas,
Very good point. Very good point. I was a bit fast there, trying to aim for those 10 minutes. All right, in this episode, we're going to talk about the larger requirements that we have in the design and development planning, which is a quite large requirement or section in the standard. So we have dissected it, and this episode we will focus on the clause on the nature and duration and complexity of the design and development activities, and you can see the clause there on the slide. I mean, if you're not familiar with the ISO standard, it's built up with a lot of clauses, which are requirements that you need to have in place in order to actually work with continuous improvement. But it doesn't say how, it only tells what should be in place. And you should bear that in mind, that the standard is only talking about what you need, not how you do it. And that's where Lean and Agile comes into place.
Yeah, and also Andreas, the reason we picked this particular clause is that we think that there are lots of businesses and organizations out there who are striving with getting construction and development into their value streams in a natural way, instead of defining special projects that live their own lives all the time and maybe are not efficient or good enough in order to serve the organization. So we thought that let's start with design and construction and the clause A32A, because that has to do with what the requirements you put on yourself when you're developing things. And we will discuss now a few important steps that you can use from the Lean Agile world in order to make meaning into how to work with it.
Exactly.
So the Lean Agile bridge here, if you may, we will say the Lean Agile answer to this, or the Lean Agile bridge. And when we say like that, what we mean is, what is the answer from a Lean Agile perspective on a certain requirement within ISO standard. And the first one, Agile economics. When you develop, you need to develop in a customer-centric and efficient way. So with Agile economics, we simply mean that we develop in cadence, in sort of a rhythm, to align things, to make teams work together and know where they are in what to deliver during the periods they are working. And they also deliver quite frequently. In the Agile world, we say that development is not a project, and that's where we have the avoid the trap of the waterfall model to the right, because we say that the waterfall model is a trap because it specifies what to do long before you know exactly how the product and service should be, because how it should be is part of the process of designing it. So Agile economics is to release things often and have a customer-centric approach to it. And to the upper right here, simplicity by thinking in minimal viable product way. It means don't bring everything to the product or service at once. Develop in small pieces that adds value to the product as you go along. From a leadership perspective, motivation and delegation is an extremely important part in the Lean Agile way of thinking. For example, you need to provide the people doing the development to feel that they master things, and also to have autonomy. You need to delegate the responsibility for doing things to the people who know exactly or how to work with the development, so that they feel that they have an autonomous role and not is guided or directed by the leaders all the time. And the last thing has to do with purpose. We have to create meaning in what we do, and meaningful development will always give better development. So this is a very important part of bridging what the requirements are in the ISO with how you should work in practice.
What you have to bear in mind is that all the requirements in the standard, they are tied together and linked together in a millions of ways. And what you have talked about here is also a part of the requirements on communication. It's on the requirements on autonomy and mastery and actually having the right tools and mindset to do your job and the right training. And it's also linked to leadership and to support your people in the organization to actually deliver value and work with continuous improvement. And they are all tied together. And we can discuss this topic in another episode because this is very, very interesting. So when you dissect the standard as we are doing now and just talking about a very, very, very small fragment of the standard, we also have to bear in mind that this part is connected to a lot of other parts and requirements and sections in the standard.
By just highlighting the things that we really need to think of and act on in the Lean Agile bridge to this requirement, think MVP, think minimum viable products, because you are going to go from a waterfall model where you think that everything can be specified in beforehand. Instead, you are going to release products and services that adds small chunks of functionality as we go along. And in order to do that, Agile tells us that we already from the start need to provide options in order to change the direction slightly as we go along. And that is not found in the waterfall model. We already do what we have specified up front. But in an agile answer to that is we are not doing that, but we are providing options all the time so that we can change a little bit as we go along. And that is also a very economic way to develop things when you're thinking minimal viable product. So these are common, very important aspects of bridging that requirement from the ISO requirement point of view, Andreas.
Yeah, and we are also actually talking about the nature, the duration and complexity of the design and development activities that you are actually performing when you are running agile methods on development. Then you are taking in account these things during the process that you have in an agile environment. If you're using the tools in, let's say, SAFe or Scrum, you're actually, you can tick off the requirement, this requirement in the standard, because it is built in to the process to have this duration and complexity of the design in mind all the time.
The first time I heard you, Andreas, telling me that if you work in a Lean Agile way, you are fulfilling the requirements within ISO. And it's in this vlog, we are trying to highlight that as we go along all the way, because if you are transferring or to put it in whatever word suits you the best, but you are transferring your organization from being a project-driven waterfall type of organization into a more Lean Agile organization, the effect is that you actually are following the requirements in ISO by just working in an Agile or Lean Agile way. And that's as this introduction episode is probably the bottom line of it all. But Andreas, what are we going to talk about next? We are following up on the development, aren't we?
Absolutely. I mean, in our next episode, we're going to take on actually the same requirement, but another sub-requirement in that requirement, because we are talking about design and development planning. And in the next episode, we will talk about the required process stages, including applicable design and development reviews. And as you will hear in that episode, you will actually, by working Lean Agile, also be applicable to these requirements.
Yeah, and that leaves us with just a few messages here. If you want to subscribe to this vlog, please just click the subscribe button below, because then you will make sure that you get notice whenever we release a new episode in our vlog. And we have a one-day course in covering all the aspects of the requirements in ISO and explaining how the Lean Agile counterpart is in order to fulfill that requirement. And that's a one-day course, and you can join that by either clicking on this link here, or you can mail Andreas or me and say that I'm interested in information about this. So it's up to you. If you want to take part of that course, please just tell us, because then you will get a deep dive into what this is all about. So that's about it, Andreas, isn't it?
It is. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much for your attention. And we see you in our next vlog.